learning yourself from watching other people evaluate. And I think this exercise will confirm that we all learn from each other. So what I'd like to do is just ask each person, will go down the line to stand up and give their comment. They'd like to share their evaluation just briefly, and then we'll go to the next person. So Josh, would you mind being up first?
Sure. I love Juan's voice. He has great projection. Every word is clear and understandable. His body language and his posture and his gestures all project confidence in what he has to say. If I could give him a suggestion in this particular speech, I would say one of the transitions was confusing to me, where he's talking about the advice he got from his father was to focus when he was senior in college and he had no idea what to do next. And his father said, focus or change your focus. The next scene that Juan paints for us is he's in his first job. And I didn't understand whether he focused or not to get there, or whether he somehow stumbled into it without focusing. Overall, it was a fabulous speech, mainly because of the style of delivery and the confidence that you project.
Thank you. And I really like what Josh did. If you all wouldn't mind giving something that you really think he did excellent, that he did very well, and then what we call a gift, giving something that you see he could work on. I think that's really helpful for all of us. So Mark, will you take it?
I don't know about us going first here, then they're going to know all the answers at the end.
Maybe they'll be the wrong answers.
I thought it was like your whole voice, your body language, your stage presence, those are all excellent. You had a great start with a strong voice. Your gestures were all great. I thought those things were all, from the standpoint of being a speaker and connecting with the audience, you did all those things well. I was following along the focus thing, and I was on that path until you got to the part about the books. And it seemed to me after that, it was anything but focus. We were all over the place. We were reading all these books, we were going to all these other places, and then I wasn't able to figure out whether it was about focus or changing focus. And so there was a point about focus is, well, you gotta pick which way you're gonna go, or is it just always picking a different way? So I had a hard time figuring that out and getting to the end, and at the end I still wasn't sure what was the result. Was it to be focused or to change focus? So I think, for all the things about being captivating and being interesting and all, those are all very high marks, but I lost the organizational part after the book piece. That's, to me, where it kind of started doing this, and I wasn't able to follow. Thank you.
Juan, I think that you're such a fabulous speaker. Thank you always for sharing your gifts with us. It's really inspiring to see you speak. And I've seen you speak so many times now that I can kind of tell, I could tell that there was a part, I could tell where your structure was in the speech. Some things that I really appreciated about the way that you structure this speech is that there are some recurring elements that help us to keep the structure. I love when you have the person sit there and you have this gesture where they're contemplating you and then they tell you to focus. That's one element that brings us back to that structure. I love the mention of the stereogram and how you mentioned that several times. I think that brings us back to the structure. And I think those are some things that you did really well as far as structure goes. I really appreciated both aspects. I felt like sometimes I could see this very polished speech, and sometimes I could see this very polished speaker who was telling a story. And I really enjoyed seeing both parts of you, because there's one part that you know every word that you're going to say, and there's another part that you don't necessarily know every word that you're going to say, but both of them are so polished, professional, and also approachable. And I really appreciated you bringing both sides of that.
Hello, my name is Josh Beadle, and I'm going to be evaluating Juan. Juan, I thought your storytelling was really clear, and it was really natural the way that you talk, so it really engages me, and I don't have any gifts because you're so perfect.
the future. I honestly, like Josh, I haven't been doing this very long, but just seeing you do that is so inspiring because I see that like, wow, hopefully one day I can get there. But it was so wonderful. Some things that really stuck with me, very inspiring. Everything that you spoke about, spoke well and clear, had great volume when you started with that focus. It was just like it stuck with me. It kind of scared me a little bit, but it was great. Commanding presence and body language. I wrote down, followed the whole speech because sometimes when people are speaking for a long time, it's hard to really focus, but how you spoke, I could stay with you the whole time. I also wrote down, how are you so good? So please share that. And I couldn't really think of anything to give you a gift on, but I did write down if I had to say something, maybe add a little bit of humor more into it so it wasn't like so serious the whole time. But that was just me like grasping for something because really the whole thing was great. Thank you.
Hi, Mon, first of all, very excellent speech. Like Katie, I would love to speak that way as well. And I like that your main focus was interconnected throughout your entire speech, and that helped me follow through. And aside from the excellent body gesture, body language, and you're an excellent storyteller as well, and I love that as a gift. I would possibly want to understand what focus is in your speech, like what he said earlier, because I was confused whether it's focusing each step you're going, like seeing what's happening around you, or is it focusing on one thing you have in mind. So I think that would be helpful. And for the introduction and body and conclusion, I did get lost. So I'd like to have some cues where you're coming from. Are you beginning to tell your story? Are you ending it already or not? So other than that, bravo. Thank you.
Textbook example of a speaker for whom I have a very challenging time giving any kind of gift. I have seen you speak on multiple occasions. I joined the club a little over a year ago and have seen you since when you were able to make a meeting. And each and every time, I get drawn in with your energy. You've got a charisma that just goes, wow, 1,000-watt bulb, just spreads out there. You've got such an engaging smile. It's just like, this guy could be dangerous if he's trying to sell someone, seriously, it's just like, ooh, gotta be really careful, and you are. You're putting your energies and focus into great use with your life. That's just huge. You're not trying to manipulate people, but you could because you have got that power and that presence. My little, what can I say, my deficits come with when I listen to what Josh had to say. Josh H., I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Mark, what he was like, oh, yes. They were able to get into the structure, whereas I'm kind of a little bit more surface-oriented. There's so much for me to take in. The way that my brain works is kind of hard to pick up. When I review something, like a video, re-review something, it's like, oh, I can start to pick things up. So for me, this is a powerful teaching to hear what everyone has to say. Because much like Josh B., it's just like, dude, you gave us a huge gift. It was engaging, it was entertaining, it was powerful. You swept us in. It's like really challenging for me to find a gift to you. So I'm really appreciative that we're having this workshop. It's like, ooh. And so again, I can dovetail on those things that you guys had seen. So that, oh, yeah, about the focus. Is it focus or is it awareness? And just kind of keep playing with that. But again, a compelling speech and a great gift. I wish I had more of a gift.
May? Yes. I didn't realize I was going to do an evaluation, so I'm not necessarily mentally prepared. But I definitely enjoyed the speech. The objective is organizing the speech. So of course I can have a multitude of things to evaluate. But I always like to evaluate the content, because if you're going to speak without an interest in content, what's the point of speaking? So for the content, I'd say it was a highly, highly valuable content. I can see it a speech given to high schooler, like a senior who wants to go in the transition in their life, or someone who's going to job recruiting to help them. So it has a value in that way, or in college students, senior, sophomore, in between, they're finding what is their focus as they play. So the structure you started with the beginning of the stereogram. So it took me a while to understand what it is, but I think I get what it is. Those pictures that you can, like, sometimes, maybe what is it is, it's like look different ways, but you have to, particular way, then you can see the picture. Like I think when we were kids, we had that like in cards or something. So it took me a while to understand that. So there was a game with the word focus, because the focus could be to focus on one thing or to have a scope of the. So I would have liked you to have done, you had 3 stories, your father, Ty, and then at work. With your father, I would like you to have added something, oh, okay, what do you want me to focus? I went to school, I have a job, I have this. Because in that stereogram, there are so many ways you tilt it till you actually look at the picture. So maybe you could have put that in to kind of draw us to understand what you meant by focus. Ty's story was a little bit too much. You could have edited that, and you just left it at looking at the internet, and you've seen what the guy does and all that, and you said, okay, he has a car, he has a Lamborghini, he has a job, he has this thing that he's doing, all these things, but what is really the focus? So I would have done that a little bit, like each time to go back to the thing, and when we got to the conclusion, oh, I see, now I understand who I am with all these variable things in my life. I have a college degree, I worked non-profit, I did the recruiting for this university, but really my best focus is that I'm a speaker. I need to. Other than that, I'm next week.
Tough following. You're right. One, I love your stage presence. That's superb. Okay, for whatever speech you're giving. And I love the topic focus. But like
May.
you mentioned, where were you going with the focus? And what was your journey on the focus? Because I would agree is that you can take that topic and go number of ways, right? You can even think about it and saying, okay, focus is after this and this, right? That's one, it's one way of looking at it, but you had a definite purpose in bringing that topic up. What was it, and how did it impact you? That's the only thing I have.
Darla? Okay, Juan, you were one of the first speakers when I showed up. You were very impactful. I obviously, so you were very good. I think that you were definitely focused. The only thing that I lost, like in my world, like when I say focus and people want me to focus, they want me to focus on something very specific. Like, I want to make $1 million. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want this. So I felt like focus was fabulous. I just would like to know that I need specifics. And the only other thing, and I'm not asking, I don't even know if this is relevant, if body language, you are so focused up there, but I know how nervous I am before I go up. And I was sitting next to you, and I had a lot of body language. I didn't see anything because I'm like, oh my God, can I remember my stuff? What am I going to do? Whatever. So that was the only gift. Otherwise, you're phenomenal.
Thank you, Darla. I'm going to piggyback onto what Darla said. You are amazing at body language. You use the stage like I have not seen anybody else use the stage before. And Juan gave me one gift once that I just thought was such an amazing gift. And he was talking about the time frame. When he started young, he got a little older, and he got a little older. And he used the stage as a platform to transport him as he grew older. And I just thought that was so phenomenal. And that's something you gave to me that I've kept with me. My gift for you is, I was startled, kind of like Katie brought up, when you said, focus! And it made me coil back and sort of try to catch myself and not hear what was going on because I had to come back from being scared. So that kind of took me off track. And then you, at the very beginning, I thought you got quick in your speech. And again, at the very beginning, it was very hard for me to follow. So my gift to you would be to find a way of saying that focus without scaring us, even though it is Halloween, right? And maybe that was your intent. And to keep your speech a little slower because you have so much to give, and I want to hear every word of what you're saying. I think this has been a great exercise. I've been so interested in hearing the same things repeated again and again, which means we all are really listening to me. We all are picking up things that the speaker is putting out, and I'm really happy to hear that this group is learning all those techniques. So it made me happy to hear all of you, especially some people who are a little newer to the club, are picking up the same things that people who've been around a little longer are hearing as well. So I think that was awesome. Any comments for the group from what you learned?
Yeah.
What you picked up, was it helpful?
It was amazing. Thank you all for the feedback, very specific. I think you guys provided exactly what you said at the beginning, the difference between evaluating and critiquing. You did exactly what you talked about. You were very specific, very motivating, very kind-hearted, but at the same time, it's like, okay, here's my gift, here's what I think you should work on. So I think there is an art to giving a good evaluation, and we all learn from it, we're all implementing it. So, and I guess I'll talk a little bit more about it in my next segment, as far as like, the differences between beginning and the things evaluation.
Right. One last thing I want to tie on, and then Josh has a comment. Everybody used I statements,
Yeah.
and I thought that was so great. We were talking too long, we were giving him our gifts. We used I instead of we or they or whoever, so we made it personal, and it wasn't anything against his character. It was talking about his speech behavior, not the person. So, Josh, you had a comment?
Juan, I think you were asked to do a slip up in your speech, and you. That's
what I was going to ask.
Did you slip up?
Yeah, it was mostly like, it was the content, like what the basic things that you guys said, that it was a little bit confusing, that it wasn't really actually focused. That was kind of like what I intended to do, like make it a little bit more scattered.
I didn't get that at all. I thought it was so good. I didn't see any flaws.
Thank you.
And that's okay too.
But yeah, this was a speech that actually gave me a speech contest. So you,
I heard it.
yeah, you heard it a few times actually, because
It was more condensed. This one you prolonged.
this is a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
that's
I-
another thing I kind
Yeah,
of
lots
rambled
of-
on a
yeah.
little bit, added more like details.
Mm.
Didn't make it as concise. So those are some of the things. Just rambled on a little bit more, and the content was just a little bit scattered. Yeah.
So we caught you out on stuff that you purposely goofed on.
He wanted us.
Yeah. Josh, you had a comment?
That was what I was going to ask as well.
Okay. So you guys are twins?
Yeah, apparently.
Josh and Josh? Okay. All right. Juan is going to share with us a little bit more now about what the difference is between an evaluation on a beginning speaker, someone who's new to Toastmaster, and somebody who's a more advanced speaker. What kind of evaluations do you give to these different people? Are they the same or are they different? So Juan?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wrote a few notes here actually. So the differences between evaluating beginner speakers and advanced speakers. I believe we saw a little bit of everything in this group evaluation as we went around in this round robin manner. Some of you had more like nuanced and advanced like tips and techniques. and then some focus on like delivery, pacing myself. So those are the two extremes. Let's start with like the beginners. Somebody that's just starting out, there are a few things that an evaluator should focus on. And I think the number one thing is the delivery, body language, and vocal projection. Okay? Because when you're first starting out, you're not used to being in a platform where you're communicating with more than like 5 or 10 people. We're used to communicating one-on-one with our friends, with our family, but not in this like new way, in this new style, being in front of everybody. And that's where our nervous tics come out, our anxiety kicks in. So when you're just starting out, the most important thing for me is just getting used to the stage, figuring out exactly what you're doing that's distracting the audience. Like to me, I still have a tendency to speak really fast. When I first started, my gosh, I was just like a machine. Like people could barely understand what I was saying because I was so nervous. That's my nervous tic, is speaking really, really fast. But I had evaluators. They weren't focusing on the content when I was starting out. They weren't focusing on the speech structure or what Mark told me about, like being more focused with your content. That wasn't it at the very beginning. At the very beginning, it was like, one, just slow the heck down, just chill, relax. It's like, okay, be more emotive, use your gestures, and vocal projection as well. Because I had a tendency to speak kind of like, yeah, I was a little low in my vocal tonality because I was nervous. So when you're starting out, and if you're evaluating somebody that's in maybe first 5 speeches, I would say, like the first 5 speeches, just focus on the fundamentals. Body language, vocal projection, delivery, and just pinpoint like the one thing they need to do to work on. Not 2, not 3, not 4 or 5. Just like what's the one thing that if they double down on, it would make everything else easier. So if your nervous tic is like, you speak really, really fast, then that's just the one thing you need to work on. Is be more deliberate and more articulate with your speaking style. Okay, so pragmatically, what can you do? Okay, that sounds great, but I don't know how to slow down. Well, you could then have different suggestions. You can give different advice. Well, maybe just go on the opposite extreme. Speak as slow as you possibly can. Like, purposely. Like, take your time with every word, with every syllable. When you're reading a book, like, read it out loud, but take your time with it. Does that make sense? You just come up with, like, specific, practical, pragmatic tips that they can use to slow down. Don't just say, slow down. Okay, cool. It's great advice. Now, how do I do it? Then that's what your expertise as an evaluator, that's what you have to figure it out. All of us have different skill sets. Maybe you're a teacher, or if you're a vocal performer, or if you're a dancer or something, how can you implement what you're good at and make it relevant to the speaker for that specific advice? Okay? If maybe, on the other hand, now that you mastered like pacing yourself and having a good rhythm, but now it's like having more vocal variety and having that dynamic way of speaking where it's like low, it's high, it's slow, it's really fast, then that's the next step. But every time the person speaks, it's like you want to build on those fundamentals, on those basics. I believe like 90% of speaking is really just those fundamentals. That's pretty much it. Like as long as you master that, everything else, like that last 10%, it's just little nuances, little tips, little tweaks that can get you up to like that world class, like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy type of guys, right? They master the fundamentals. They just do a few little things that takes them to the next level. Does that make sense? So when you're just starting off, it's just the basics. Delivery, vocal projection, body language, rhythm, just focus on those things. And when they're giving one speech, focus on the one thing they can do to improve on. That's it. And to build on that, I think it's very important to build confidence in the speaker. It's such a nerve-wracking thing to do, such a personal thing. It's such a point of insecurity for a lot of people, public speaking. It's one of the biggest fears for a human being. But when you can provide like that positive energy, that calm, like, wow, you have so much potential, like here are your strengths, I like your smile, I like just the way you speak, it's very natural, I feel very calm. You want to highlight their strengths as well. Right? Communication is such a visceral and such a like primal thing. All of us are good at it. We already know how to do it. When we speak to our best friend and we tell them like a story, like a crazy story that happened from vacation or a really funny joke, we're already charismatic. We already speak with vocal variety. We're engaging, we're articulate with delivery. But for some reason, when it's like in front of a stage, it's like we contract. So it's not so much about like adding on different things. It's just about letting go when you are in front of people. Because we're already naturally good communicators. So I guess it's just that shift in mindset. It's not adding on, it's letting go of like the nervousness, the mindset that I'm not good enough. It's just those little mind shifts. So that's pretty much when you're evaluating somebody that's a beginner. Now when you're evaluating somebody that's more advanced, more experienced, then you can focus specifically on the content and the speech structure. So like Mark, and even Jodelle and May, you guys were telling me to focus specifically on the content. So once you have those fundamentals down, then you can talk about, okay, how can you structure your speech to make it more impactful, to make it even more captivating, and to help your message be clearly delivered to your audience. And that's what you guys did. Like Mark, you told me I was scattered. I was like, is it focus or is it change your focus? And then when you got to this particular example about like books and conferences, like I got lost. Yeah, that's a very advanced, that's a very nuanced thing. It's a very specific tip. It's like, okay, now I gotta go back to my speech writing. I gotta go back to my Word document. Okay, yeah, what example can I use here? How can I clean this up? How can I make it more concise? And to your point, yours was even more nuanced. You're like, oh, when you look at a stereogram, sometimes you gotta look at it this way. No, at this different angle. Maybe at a different distance. How can that be a metaphor for like, okay, well, you know, I did this thing, you know, I went to LA to find out this guy, no, it didn't really work. Then I did this other thing, it's like, oh, okay, bam, the speaking thing. I focused. That's a very, very advanced, like, I will have to go home and reflect on that. It's not easy to do. So at a more advanced level, it's mostly like speech writing. When you're beginning in speech delivery, and at an advanced level is speech writing. So once that person has given like five speeches, and you can tell like, okay, they got it. They got the fundamentals. They're engaging, they have good vocal projection, good body language, they feel comfortable on stage. Okay, I'm not gonna give them more gifts about their delivery or their basics. They pretty much have it down. Now it's like, okay, let's focus on your content. Could you have used a different example? Could you have used a different metaphor? Sometimes, and I do this a lot, I may use like an example or a pop culture reference, but everybody doesn't get it, because we're multicultural here. I mean, you were talking like, oh, the stereogram, like it was a little bit, you didn't quite get it.
So if you had a poster,
That's
your
exact, there you go.
that would have been,
Perfect.
you know, I remember like when I was a child,
Yeah.
10, 15, you know, oh, look at it, yeah.
There you go. That's another more nuanced thing. It's like, oh, bring a prop.
Mhm.
Duh.
Particularly the one that you're
Yeah.
asking us. It's not the
Yeah.
cool one.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good point. Another thing is like, so once you do have the fundamentals, how can you manipulate vocal projection to make your speech even more captivating? So how can you add pauses strategically in your speech to bring everybody in or to really hammer a point through? Right? Because once you have the fundamentals, it's great, but it's the way you manipulate those fundamentals that can even take your speech to a different level. And adding pauses, I think adding pauses is a more advanced technique. It really is, because we tend to kind of be in the zone, we're excited, we're talking about our speech, but like, oh man, a right pause, timed like the right way, ooh, it gives me chills. Oh, it does. It's like, oh, wow. There's just something about it. Just like, it interrupts your circuitry in your brain. It's like, whoa, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, the pause is like my favorite technique, and I have not mastered it yet. You know, and I want to master it because I know that's like, you know, really high level stuff. More advanced stuff, going back to the content thing, using simple, bold, and concise language. Sometimes when we're starting off, we go on rants, and maybe we use jargon or long, complicated words, or we think that if we speak at an advanced level, use very fancy words that is going to make us more attractive to the audience, or we'll have more credibility in the eyes. If you look at the most advanced speakers, they use very simple and very bold and very concise words and speech patterns. They don't have like long run-on sentences. It's just a few words in their sentences, back to back. So simple, bold, and concise language. And then the last thing for an advanced speaker is the tie-back technique. So I did it a little bit. In the beginning, I used like the metaphor of the stereogram, how life can be blurry and confusing, and you don't know where it's going. And at the very end, I tied it back. I'm like, life can be like this, but if you change your focus, then blah, 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 blah. That's the tie-back technique. At the very beginning, you can start off with a metaphor or with like a visual, something tangible that you can bring it back at the very end. There's just something really nice about that connection. Like even in our brain, it's just like our brain likes patterns. And if we see the pattern at the beginning, throughout the speech, and then once again at the very end, ooh, that makes it for a very captivating speech. So that's another very advanced technique, is the tie-back technique. If you use like a specific story when you were starting out, maybe you can tie it back to the story from beginning to end. So that's just like one final thing. So to recap, for advanced speakers, you want to focus on the speech structure, on the content, on the actual speech writing, manipulating vocal projection, pauses, being loud at the right moments, maybe not as loud like you said in the beginning. That was an advanced evaluation technique. I've already, I guess, kind of mastered that vocal projection, but then maybe I need to like tie it back. Because somebody in the audience, they'll be like, oh, what the heck? And then they won't listen to the next things. So that was an advanced thing you told me to, which was great. Simple, bold, and concise language, and then that tie-back technique. Okay? So I think these are very practical and pragmatic things you can implement, not only in your own speech, but next time when you're evaluating somebody, have a little one-on-one before they give a speech. Like, okay, what do you want to work on today? Where are you in your speaking process? Oh, I'm only in my second speech. Okay, let's focus on the fundamentals. What do you think you're struggling with? Oh, I think I speak really fast. Then make a note of that. Then when you listen, you're like, yeah, they speak really fast, but actually, there's this other thing.